The 2025 MotoGP season is only 2 rounds old, but one thing is clear to his rivals. Marc Marquez is looking more ferocious than ever. His dominant display at the Argentina Grand Prix really reinforced that notion as he made history by becoming the first factory Ducati rider to start a season with back-to-back Grand Prix wins. However, it's not just about winning, it's about how he does it. Relentless speed, calculated aggression, and psychological warfare with his younger brother Alex Marquez, revealing a frightening truth. First of all, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next video. In MotoGP, where every fraction of a second is carved out of bravery and madness, there are moments that defy lap times or tire data. And when Aussie racer Jack Miller said, "The dude is terrifying," I saw his aura. He wasn't just being dramatic. He was talking about Marc Marquez, the legend, the gladiator, the once-in-a-generation talent who, after years of pain, doubt, and crashes that would end most careers, looks to be coming back in full force, or perhaps something even scarier. The 2025 season is only just warming up, but the storylines are shifting fast. Marquez, now donning the red of Ducati's factory team, doesn't just look fast. He looks like himself again, or maybe a new, evolved version of who he used to be. This is a man who nearly had his career stripped away in 2020. A shattered arm, multiple surgeries, and a comeback story so long and brutal that honestly, many thought the final chapter had already been written. But Marc? He never stopped believing in Marc. The moment people started to believe came on a charter flight bound for Thailand. The whole MotoGP paddock was on board. Riders, engineers, crew chiefs, everyone. And then Marc stepped off the plane. You could feel it, Jack Miller recalled on the Gypsy Tales podcast. It was déjà vu, like he had reincarnated. I've seen it before. In the MotoGP paddock, riders are hypersensitive to changes in energy. Everyone notices when a rider has that edge, that swagger, that silent electricity that says, "I'm back, and I'm coming for all of you." But it wasn't just some mystic vibe. The man's physique told its own story. "He's lean like a racehorse," Miller said, almost shaking his head in disbelief. "He's ready to go." You could see it in his posture, the rebuilt shoulder, the dialed-in focus, the machine-like commitment to fitness. Marc didn't just show up in shape, he showed up transformed. There's a difference between being fit and being prepared for battle. Marc was the latter. But perhaps the most powerful thing about Marquez isn't what's on the outside, it's his mind. "That dude is an alien," Miller said, "not just a freak of nature, but someone who thinks differently on the bike. Someone who pushes past logic, past fear, past reason." Most guys, when something's not working, they back off, he added. Marc? Hell no. That thought never crosses his mind. Miller described it like riding with a sword in your hand. Live by it, die by it. Marquez isn't trying to survive out there, he's trying to conquer. That mentality? It's rare, and it's dangerous. Last year, his move to Gresini and an older spec Ducati seemed like a desperate Hail Mary. But it turned out to be just what he needed. Less pressure, more freedom, a chance to rediscover the fire. And now, in 2025, with the full factory spec Ducati Desmo Sedici under him, Marquez has everything he needs. The latest technology, fresh rubber, and a clear mind. "You don't know exactly how that shoulder is holding up," Miller said, "but from what we've seen, he looks solid." Add to that Ducati's improvements, better rear grip, more balanced feedback. And, well, you've got a perfect storm for a rider who doesn't need much to be lethal. You can feel it. In the paddock, in the stands, even on your TV at home. There's a shift happening. Marc Marquez is no longer a question mark. He's an exclamation point. And if Miller's instincts are right, if that aura really is back, then the rest of the field better wake up fast. Because Marc isn't just riding for podiums, he's riding to remind the world who the hell he is. In a sport defined by millimeters and milliseconds, sometimes the biggest statement isn't what's said, it's what's felt. And right now, the whole paddock is feeling something they haven't felt in years. Fear. Because Marc Marquez, the alien, the warrior, the myth, he's not just back, he's reborn. From what I heard, the MotoGP rider who became Marc Marquez's obsession, well, it's a story about how the spirit of Casey Stoner still burns in the style and honestly the soul of a modern legend. By the time a teenage Marc Marquez stepped into the grand theater of MotoGP, The whispers had already begun. In the paddocks, in the data rooms, and in the sanctuaries where engineers and riders study their craft like monks poring over ancient scrolls, one name kept surfacing alongside Marquez's: Casey Stoner. Not as a rival, not as a teammate, but as a blueprint. He's always been obsessed with Casey, former MotoGP rider Scott Redding said in a raw, revealing moment on the Motorsport Republic podcast. From what I heard, it was like Stoner, Stoner, Stoner every time you talked to Mark. He would just keep going back to his data. It's not unusual for young riders to idolize those who came before them. But Marquez's fascination went deeper than fandom. He studied Stoner's telemetry data like scripture, rewound footage of his races, and tried, bit by bit, to emulate what many called the uncopyable. Casey Stoner wasn't just fast, he was enigmatic, a rider who could bend physics, riding on the edge of grip, control, and chaos. I watched this documentary where Stoner was riding a 250cc, Redding recalled. He crashed, got up, rode faster, crashed again. He just wouldn't stop because the bike wasn't doing what he wanted. That stubborn genius, that's what Mark tried to channel. And over time, that emulation turned into transformation. Watch Marc Marquez attack turn 3 at Phillip Island, leaning the bike into the corner with a kind of reckless elegance. And it's easy to see what Redding meant when he said, "It's like Stoner Jr." If you put them both in black leathers, he said, I could probably tell the difference, but barely. The way they corner, the way they feel the front tire, how they throw the bike in, it's uncanny. This isn't just mimicry, it's the evolution of a philosophy. While Stoner was a ghostly genius who often chose solitude over stardom, Marquez took the same tools and sharpened them for war. Where Stoner raced like a poet, Marquez raced like a gladiator. But the root, the instinct, that came from the Australian with 2 world titles and a short fuse for mediocrity. Casey Stoner retired young. 2 world championships, one for Ducati, one for Honda, and then he was gone. No farewell tour, no victory lap, just silence. He could ride anything, Redding said with a kind of awe. Most of us think we can, but then reality hits, not him. He could take any bike and make it fast. It was like watching someone born for it. Stoner's early departure left a void in the sport, but also an opportunity. Honda needed a new star, someone who could carry not just the bike, but the brand. And when Marquez debuted in 2013, he didn't just win, he rewrote the rules. With his elbows out style, his impossible saves, and his mind wired for the edge, Marquez didn't just honor Stoner's legacy, he extended it. Fast forward to 2025, and Marc Marquez, now in Ducati Red, is chasing his 9th world title. His first with a different manufacturer after a lifetime with Honda. The same manufacturer Stoner once delivered their only title with. The irony is thick. The history is poetic. The connection between the two, eternal. Even now, some say Marquez has already surpassed Stoner. More wins, more titles, a longer, more dominant era. But in a sport where numbers don't always tell the full story, there's something sacred about the lineage between them. Marquez, the master of the modern era. Stoner, the myth who made him believe it was possible. And somewhere in the blur of speed, in a quiet corner of a data room, there's probably still a trace of Stoner's lines, etched forever into the riding style of the man who wouldn't let them fade.